Houston is a different place today than it would have been without Terry Hershey.
Terry Hershey was green long before green was cool. She truly is a force of nature.
President Bush called her a force of nature. I would rather call her a force for nature.
Terry Hershey has had an impact on the environment and those who care about the environment for almost 50 years.
Of course, she's most known for her victory over Buffalo Bio in the Corps of Engineers.
And people had the idea, they didn't mean to do wrong, nobody knows beans about hydrology.
President Bush was a freshman member of Congress at the time, and Terry convinced him that not only was it wasteful to spend millions of dollars channelizing Buffalo Bio, but that it would destroy the character of one of Houston's loveliest natural assets.
I've learned over the years something about fluvial geomorphology. Now, I didn't start out knowing it. I'm a philosophy major, and I had some common sense, and I looked at a river and said, that's a horrible thing to do to it. May I add, that was the reaction to Congressman George Bush when he looked at the plan to channelize Buffalo Bio. He said, what a terrible thing to do to a river.
You will still be able to access dedicated funds.
It was Terry's affinity for parks that led Governor Ann Richards to appoint her to the Texas Parks and Wildlife Commission in 1991.
You go to the park and walk around and you come back with an emotional experience, and maybe you're not quite as frantic as you were before you went out with the trees and the birds.
She brought to that board an emphasis on parks which had not been there before, and it was sadly lacking.
Her tenure was not without controversy. During her very first commission meeting, her trademark candor caused her and the governor some grief.
The first meeting that she attended was the spring meeting in which we used to consider the wildlife regulations, the bag limits and the seasons and those kind of things. And it went on and on and on all day long.
And Terry said something like, if y'all talk about hunting one more time, I'm gonna throw up. I think people missed the point of it with my unfortunate phrasing.
And all the reporters sitting on the front row raced to the payphones.
Here I had appointed this totally insane woman.
Well, Ann Richards once said too late, she learned that nothing is funny when you see it in print.
Terry Hershey did a fabulous job for the people of Texas, for our heritage, for the future that our children will enjoy in this state, because she was a woman who cared.
So soon we're history, so we have to seize the moment.
Terry Hershey, a force of nature and a force for nature.
Good evening. I'm Suzanne Langley, Vice President and Executive Director of Audubon, Texas. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to the 6th annual presentation of the Audubon, Texas Terry Hershey Award, celebrating Texas women in conservation. Needless to say, we're celebrating a bit differently tonight. May have a few technology issues, but as it is where we are these days. And though current realities keep us from being together in Dallas as planned, we are thrilled to recognize the outstanding achievements of Janette Monear, Julie Shackelford, Ann Brown, and Gail Thomas this evening. You'll hear more throughout tonight's program about the trailblazing conservation work of each of our honorees. Just like these incredible women, we too know that now more than ever, our own critical conservation efforts can and must continue in earnest. Audubon, Texas and our statewide network have made incredible strides toward advocating for threatened coastal habitat, understanding climate mitigation and adaptation opportunities, and working with urban communities surrounding our nature centers while advancing our efforts to inform, inspire, and unite diverse communities in conservation action. Few programs exemplify this commitment to inspiring conservation action more than our Audubon Conservation Leaders Program for young women. Funds raised from this evening's event help Audubon provide innovative, nature-based experiences for young women across Texas. And we'll be hearing from some of this year's participants later in our program as they share how the Audubon Conservation Leaders Program has nurtured the beginning of their own conservation journeys. Before we dive into the heat and the heart of tonight's program, I'd like to first acknowledge the sponsors and volunteers whose ongoing support enables our conservation successes. We're so grateful for your continued generosity and support of Audubon, Texas, and our Women in Conservation program. Despite our physical distance during this challenging time, Audubon's commitment to protecting birds and the places they need has never wavered. And tonight's sponsors understand that. This program, as with all our conservation work throughout Texas and beyond, would not be possible without these organizations, foundations, and individuals. I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge this year's Women in Conservation Steering Committee. Chaired by 2019 Terry Hershey awardee Carolyn Chipman Evans, steering committee members donated their time and expertise in sifting through dozens of applications for this year's award and ultimately recommended the 4 extraordinary women we honor this year. Our gratitude also extends to our Audubon Texas Board of Directors, who have strongly supported the Audubon Texas Women in Conservation program since its beginning. Thank you to Board Chair Pete Moore and all our board members for everything that you do for Audubon and for birds. Which brings me to tonight's first honoree. Janette Monear has a profound love of trees. Thanks to her unwavering passion, her North Texas home is being transformed one tree at a time. Please join me in watching this video that tells Janette's story.
So today we're going to plant 50 trees.
For all the trees planted here today, Janette Monear will probably never see their canopies of shade.
Part of a legacy is what you do now for the future.
The best time to have planted a tree was about 20 years ago, but the second best time is today.
Planting trees in North Texas is the mission of the Texas Trees Foundation, but not just any tree in any place.
Rather than just putting a tree here and a tree there, we started doing it in a very systematic way and planting where trees were needed the most.
It's much better when you've taken the time to do the research and make sure that it's a very sound project. It's impressive.
She went after it with scientific evidence to show you what kind of impact this was going to have. And it has. It's changed neighborhoods. It's changed workplaces. It's been extremely successful.
The Southwestern Medical District is ground zero for the most ambitious project ever attempted by the Texas Trees Foundation. In these thermal maps, heat islands are pervasive throughout the city, caused by too much concrete combined with too little tree cover.
The medical district is one of the hottest areas in the city. It's anywhere from 10 to 15 degrees hotter. And then you're looking at this area here. So we looked at the district in terms of not just tree canopy, but sidewalk and accessibility for pedestrians and people. So through the redesign of the medical district, we are going to make it a place of healing and peace.
And that is what long-range planning is all about. When it is done right, the results are quite extraordinary.
But not all things can be predicted or planned for.
The National Weather Service says a tornado that ripped through the Dallas area last
When I drove into the area, which was the weekend after the tornado, I sat in the car and cried.
In my district, 2%.
You had the most. There were over 3,500 trees that were lost in the tornado. So we are setting about to look at how we can help reforest the area.
Her effectiveness to bring people together is what really helps move the needle and make Dallas a better place.
Janette is passionate about educating children about trees and the environment. And through a program called Cool Schools, the Texas Trees Foundation is improving the tree canopy at campuses throughout North Texas.
On our school campuses, we'll plant 80 or 90 trees.
Trees are like kids. When you plant them, you can't just walk away from them. You have to nurture them along over a period of time until they mature and can take care of themselves. And so that takes time, it takes money, it takes participation by the entire community.
It will take time for trees to grow, but it'll be an everlasting legacy. And she has been relentless about it.
Relentless in a good way.
And I think the beauty of that word for me is that it reflects the passion that drives the work that I do. There's never a no. It's just another way. I want to thank Audubon, Texas for honoring the work I've done in urban forestry. This Terry Hershey Award and being among these other inspiring and great women is very humbling and special. Speaking for the trees is easy, and to me, trees are at the core of a healthy ecosystem. That is why the work of the Texas Trees Foundation is so important. We're making our cities greener, cleaner, and cooler, and the investment we're making directly impacts a better quality of life for all. Through today's program, Audubon, Texas is inspiring the next generation of female conservationists, which we desperately need to address the environmental challenges that we are facing. Lifting up, leaning in, and committing to future female conservations is a noblest, wise, and responsible effort. To be a force of nature, as Terry Hershey was, you need devoted and resourceful friends by your side. I've been lucky to have these friends throughout my career, especially here in Dallas. Thank you, Audubon, Texas, for this award, and thank you to all of the friends that have helped support and position me to do award-winning work.
Thank you, Janette. Your work shows clearly how protecting trees can make even the most urban areas more livable for us all. Before we meet our next honoree, I want to take a moment to introduce you to some of this year's amazing participants in the Audubon Conservation Leaders Program for Young Women. Let's listen in on the conversation about how this program is changing their lives.
Audubon has helped me learn so much about myself. I was honestly a very cautious person before, afraid to try new things. When I applied to this program, there were no reservations. I was able to try so many new things with the field trips, from kayaking to volunteering at a wildlife rehabilitation center to camping for a week. I always looked forward to our next field trip because it was a chance for a new experience.
Through this program, I was able to learn and understand more how our environment works, and I was able to see how plants and animals interact with each other. I was able to learn new leadership skills through volunteering, something that I was always passionate about.
This program has shaped my understanding of science by allowing me to discover how we are all interconnected like the world. Not only has ACL given me the opportunity to reconnect with wildlife by participating in unique field trips, but has given me the sisterhood that I can count on.
Over these past 2 years, the ACL program has given me opportunities and experiences that I would not have been able to receive otherwise, through school or any other clubs or organizations that I'm a part of.
I saw so many ways that we can help our community just by simply volunteering.
I also really liked the career panel at the end of the year. And that was very meaningful to hear from professionals in different fields about their experiences and how they navigate their work as a minority, as a female. So that was very inspiring.
So glad that I didn't stop myself from applying that first year of high school.
I can't wait for next year.
These young women are just a few of the incredible students who have benefited from the hands-on, nature-based experiences Audubon Conservation Leaders Program provides. Your generous contributions allow Audubon, Texas to continue inspiring the next generation of women conservation leaders. Since our decision to transition the celebration virtually, we've raised close to $20,000 in additional support. With your help, we're hoping to end this evening having raised a total of $30,000 for the Conservation Leaders Program. You can text TWIC, T-W-I-C, to the number on your screen, 42248, or visit texas.audubon.org/TWIC2020 to make a contribution. Our deepest thanks to those of you who have already made your donation. We'll be checking back and throughout the evening with updates on our fundraising goal. Now it's time to introduce you to our next honoree. Over the course of her career, Julie Shackelford has been involved in protecting more than 100,000 acres of Texas habitat. And she's not done yet. As you will see, Julie walks the talk.
That is a red-headed.
Yeah, that's a red-headed woodpecker calling.
I love to be able to go out to places like this and know that I had a hand in conserving it, and it's going to be there in perpetuity forever, and my kids can go out there and their kids can go out there and they can say, "This is the property Grandma protected." That just means the world to me. Are you children appreciating this educational moment we're having?
I think her biggest accomplishments have been the Neches River National Wildlife Refuge.
Along this Neches River corridor, the river is 416 miles long.
The sun salutation!
It's the heart of East Texas. When that land started selling, Julie and the Conservation Fund saw the opportunity to conserve some big tracts, put conservation easements on it, and then donate it to the refuge, to the big thicket, to protect it.
It's just magnificent. Look at that.
She has protected like 100,000 acres.
With the expenditure over $100 million.
And she does it so quietly that nobody knows what she's up to.
Her biggest accomplishment is saving these great places of Texas for all of us.
So it makes me very proud.
In her 25 years in conservation, Julie has worked on projects all over Texas, from creating the state's first wetlands plan to protecting working agricultural lands to her current position.
We've had the great privilege of working with her to help acquire and protect lands to add to our parks and wildlife management areas, and she's just doing great things all over Texas.
I just never really thought that my mom could do that, just make a big impact.
Julie has really matured into this cheese or this wine that's just in prime condition.
I don't know that many people who can go out and buy land and protect it from whatever the world's coming to.
She's not just a biologist. She has to work with appraisers, is a fundraiser, applies for grants. She's the whole full meal deal.
The Davy Crockett paddling trail on the Neches is another piece of her legacy.
She approaches paddling the river kind of like she approaches saving land. You're going to keep going even with all the obstacles. And she doesn't stop, she just keeps going.
You just have to keep plugging away, and I think the key to success in my field is you have to be more patient than the next person. You have to be willing to just stick it out because things take so long. It just takes persistence, kind of quiet persistence, I guess. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for the privilege of being here today. To Audubon, Texas for sponsoring this award. To all the amazing women in conservation who have come before us and who have paved our way to being here today. I think if anything positive has come out of COVID, it is a renewed appreciation amongst citizens of the benefit and power of nature and open space. And for me, that's, I think, the biggest privilege of doing the job that I do, which on most days doesn't feel like a job. It feels like an honor and something that I'm just so grateful to be able to do and make some small contribution to this planet that we live on. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to my family. Thank you to all my amazing coworkers throughout the year. I really, really appreciate you. And again, I appreciate this award. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie, for all you've done and continue to do to conserve our beautiful forest in East Texas. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce a special guest for tonight's event, Andy Sansom. Andy has spent his entire career supporting women in conservation, and he's joining us live to share a short tribute to a good friend to us all, Judy Boyce. Great to see you, Andy.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you so much for including me tonight and for your leadership of Audubon, Texas, but especially for allowing me to participate as we honor Janette, Julie, Ann, and Gail. Women have been at the forefront of our movement throughout its history, and honoring them in this way is not only inspiring to us, but the next generation of conservation leaders as well. I love the video about Terry. She was indeed a force of nature, but one of the reasons she was able to continue to be active into her 90s was because of the woman who had her back and was at her side, Judy Boyce. Judy Boyce herself is a force of nature who is a consummate birder. She's birded all over the world in places like Bhutan and other places. She recently retired as the executive director of the Jacob and Therese Hershey Foundation, which is one of the most influential philanthropies in conservation in our state. She helped build it to the state that it is today. Judy was active in Houston Audubon and Audubon chapters throughout the state. She has moved to Colorado, where already she is involved in conservation in one of the most beautiful places in America. So for me, to honor one of my closest friends and one of the leaders of conservation in Texas, Judy Boyce, is an honor for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for those kind words, Andy. It's a real pleasure to introduce our next honoree, Annie Brown, a tireless advocate for the conservation and preservation of natural spaces. Annie has raised more than $120 million over the course of her conservation career, including more than $20 million for Audubon, Texas's centers and sanctuaries in Dallas, Cedar Hill, and San Antonio. Let's learn more about how Annie is keeping it wild in Texas.
Morning, guys. Rise and shine.
It's dark and demented because we get up at 4 a.m.
It's a great opportunity just for us to bond a little.
Because we haven't bonded enough.
I know.
He can pick us up. Let's start walking. It's this way, right?
Ann Brown loves spending time outdoors.
Are you really going on about the ducks? I mean, the hunt's really not about the ducks.
No, the hunt's about
this.
Us.
Whether it's bird watching or bird hunting, her passion is also her profession.
Before we recruited Annie to come to the Parks and Wildlife Foundation, she was some kind of muckety-muck with National Audubon. I forget her title, vice president of something or other. She probably made it up.
So I started at the foundation in June, and the following June, we decided we were gonna launch a $100 million campaign, because why not? And fast forward 6 years later, and we're working on the next phase of that campaign.
She is the most successful conservation fundraiser that I've ever met.
I've learned everything I know about fundraising from Annie Brown.
She's just so innovative.
And if she runs up against a brick wall,
she finds another path.
She took the foundation to an entire
entirely new level. She actually helped the foundation become the wind beneath the wings of the department.
I've never seen such a dedicated individual working toward a common goal and common mission. I think that's pretty unique.
She is very skilled at fundraising. Next thing you know, we're writing another check.
Curl your fingers up and lock it in those jobs.
Okay. You see the fruits of all that in so many places, whether it's the build out of the training center for our game wardens, or the acquisition and creative partnership to acquire the Powderhorn Ranch, or helping to raise funds to help bring back pronghorn antelope to the desert grasslands.
Oh, yeah.
And at the end of the day, we're going to continue to see those fruits for generations to come.
She tries to deliver value for the donor, and she's very good at making sure that you get a return for what you have given, and the return is not just for this generation, but for generations forward.
Nothing is more gratifying than having all those partners come to the table and us all working together, because at the end, it's Texas, our lands and our waters and our wildlife that benefit.
We're here with your son today. What's it like to come out here to this project with your son?
I think especially on his birthday today. Oh, you're gonna make me cry. I can't do that.
So when I ask your mom about why she does what she does, you know what she said?
She said it was me, what, doesn't it? She tells me that. And I think that is pretty cool because my mom is a really great mom. And when she says that, it kind of inspires me to do what I do every day. So it's pretty cool that she says that. I'm starting to tear up a little bit.
I've been fortunate to have 20 years of amazing people and projects, and I hope the next 20 years we'll have more amazing people and projects that we can make a difference with. Hi, what an absolute honor to be a Hershey awardee, looking back on the past list of women who've received and my cohort. Congratulations, Julie, Janette, and a special note to Gail, who had the honor to work alongside on the Trinity. I've been extremely fortunate that my passion is my career, and it's been an amazing adventure. Along the way, I've worked with some of the most creative, committed, and motivated leaders. From my first board chair at Audubon, David Littman, through Kelly Thompson and Mike Green at the Foundation. I've also had the privilege to work with the TPW Commission, from Dan Freakin through current chairman Reed Morian. Having a 20-year career in conservation means that you've had a team of extraordinary people to work with on a daily basis, and I've had the best, both at Audubon and the Foundation. One person who's been with me through it all has been Susan Houston. A huge thank you for not only her patience, but most importantly, her sense of humor. The career of hosting events has taught me that listing people is always a challenge, but during these strange times, it seems important to name the individuals who've been along with me on my conservation journey. They've inspired me, motivated me, and taught me. My success is their success. David Hurt, George Bristol, Andy Sansom, Jeff Francel, Ileana Pena, Sherry Colding, Julie Shaddix, Deborah Brandon, Meryl Gregg, Jay Clayberg, Lydia Saldana, Mark Bivens, Will and Pam Hart, Margaret Martin, Danny Shaw, and Lori Morian, just to name a few. And I can't forget to thank the person who brought me to the foundation, Carter Smith. Thank you for betting on a girl from Chicago to not only lead your foundation, but to lead the Keeping It Wild campaign. And lastly, and most importantly, the star of my video and my #1 fan, Elliot Brown. Love you to the moon and back. Cheers, and be well.
Thank you, Annie, for challenging us all to support conservation here in Texas. Before we introduce you to our final honoree for this evening, I'd like for you to meet one of Audubon's own women in conservation, Christine Lynn. A Dallas native, Christine grew up hearing about the Trinity River Audubon Center, though she didn't know then just how instrumental women were to its creation. Now a senior producer for National Audubon Society, Christine's conservation journey has brought her back to Dallas, where she's using her storytelling skills to share her love of conservation with folks across the nation. Let's join Christine at the Trinity River Audubon Center to learn more.
Hi, I'm Christine. I work at the National Audubon Society. So I'm usually based out of the Audubon office in New York City, but because of the pandemic, I've been able to spend a lot more time here at home where I grew up in Dallas. And as a result, I've been able to work closely with Trinity River Audubon Center, which is a center I grew up hearing about. I think that really speaks to the fact that Audubon really is local everywhere. Almost every city, every state I've been to, there has been either an Audubon Center or a nature sanctuary or a state office wherever I go. When I was little, I didn't see that many women, especially women of color, in conservation or in film and media. I didn't realize that I could turn that into a career until much later when I was in college. So right after I graduated, I started working at Audubon as a social media fellow, which is part of the Walker Communications Fellowship. 6 months later, I started working full-time as the social media producer. And today, I am the senior producer of visual storytelling at Audubon. Over the past few months I've spent here in Dallas, Trinity River Audubon Center has really become an escape for me. It's become a safe place to enjoy nature right in the middle of the city. I've never really considered myself a true birder, quote unquote, but I've always had a special connection with birds because of how they bring me into nature and the outdoors. And it has been really inspiring for me to see more women of color in these leadership roles at Audubon, spearheading really the conservation movement. This is something that I didn't see growing up and I wouldn't really have imagined as a kid. So I'm really grateful that today I have the opportunity to combine both my passions in media and film as well as in conservation to protect birds and their habitats all around the country.
Thank you, Christine. We're lucky to have you as part of the Audubon team and proud of all you've accomplished thus far on your own conservation quest. It's fitting that our final honoree this evening personifies the importance of the Trinity River in Dallas. Gail Thomas has been a mentor to many, including our earlier honoree, Annie Brown. Gail's passion for nature and the Trinity River permeates everything that she does. And though her lifetime career accomplishments can't possibly be contained in one short video, we've given it our best shot.
Not very many people realize I paint, but the painting has just been my private love. When I'm in my studio, I'm in a world of imagination, of creation, of being one with nature itself.
Gail Thomas has always had an artist's soul.
I just love life.
She has been a visionary. She has talked about arts and literature in a city that is very business-oriented.
Back in the 1980s, she and some friends started the Dallas Institute of Humanities and Culture, where Gail later established the Center for the City.
Dallas is a very powerful city. It's driven, it's goal-oriented, and if we don't watch out, we lose sight of the quality of things in life that give us the soul essence of what a city or a community is.
And she envisioned a new and more livable Dallas, emanating from an area that had been both overlooked and undervalued. The Trinity River Corridor, 10 miles long, 10,000 acres, bounded by flood levees.
When we started that project, no one believed in the Trinity River. No one even knew we had a river in Dallas.
It'll change the way that Dallas is perceived.
We had to talk about the river as though it was a magical living being. Now, I'll tell you why I'm doing this. You come out here. These are my grandchildren. Come here.
Gail, understanding how important urban design was, knew that the Trinity River was the key element for urban design in Dallas. It's this river that runs right through the middle of Dallas.
She realized that there's more there than just two levees, and oh, by the way, there's something in between the two levees.
We're here to imagine the river itself.
She was the poet. She was the person that talked about the spirit of the river. It needed somebody to light the fire of our imagination.
We imagine them, and we build them.
She started thinking artistically about what it would take as a beginning to beautify the river and to have the bridges be the signature that is the main picture now of Dallas, a beautiful big city, a livable city.
I think Gail has been the conscience of Dallas to making people realize how absolutely beautiful our city can be.
And Gail was a really, really critical part of getting that engine started.
Because it's one thing to have a vision, but the wherewithal to go out in the community and gather the resources to make it happen.
And she raised $100 million. How many of us could do that?
There's life there. One of our mottos on our Trinity project was bridging the Trinity for the love of the city, because it used to be that the Trinity River divided us in Dallas, but now it unites us, and that gives me great joy. I'm very grateful to receive this award from Audubon. Actually, I'm grateful for many reasons, but the main one is that it has caused me to ponder more carefully the work of Audubon. It is so powerful, and particularly at this time, because Audubon's work causes us to focus on the power of nature itself. That remarkable force that drives every blood and heartbeat of every man and woman and every bird and every tree and even the solar system. And as the poets can say better than I, nature is never spent. There lives the dearest freshness deep down things. That's Gerard Manley Hopkins, my favorite poet. And when I go to our place in East Texas, we call Wendover, after one of his poems, I sit in the winter when it's cold outside and look at these enormous trees outside the window. And I can see the trees breathe. And I honor that remarkable force in nature that gives life to all things and all beings. And I especially honor Audubon for causing us to see the power in this universe. Thank you. And thank you for this award.
Gail, it's so inspiring to see just how much a difference one woman can make in her own community. Before we close tonight's program, I'd like to add a special thank you to our Dallas-based host committee, led by co-chairs and state board members Margaret Kelleher and Mary Soon. This committee worked tirelessly to plan a successful event, then pivoted with us as we scheduled our luncheon from spring to fall, and then pivoted once more to help create tonight's virtual celebration. Your continued diligence and support are so very appreciated. You've heard the stories of many inspiring women tonight, from our incredible Terry Hershey awardees to the young women who aspire to join them on their own conservation quest. Your support is what makes it all possible, and we can't continue our critical work on behalf of birds and the places they need without you. Just this evening, we've raised $5,000 with your help. Thank you. And it's not too late to make a contribution. Once again, you can text TWIC, TWIC, to 42248 or visit texas.audubon.org/TWIC2020. Thank you again for joining this virtual celebration, and have a great night.